The scorching twin suns beat down mercilessly as Princess Era stood alone on the vast desert plain. Her royal garments had been taken, replaced with simple survival clothes that offered minimal protection from the harsh elements. She watched with a mixture of anger and sorrow as her people's ship grew smaller against the burnt orange sky, eventually disappearing entirely. The silence that followed was absolute. "So this is how it ends," Era whispered to herself, her voice immediately swallowed by the emptiness around her. The Royal Council had made their decision swiftly. Her crime, proposing peace with the neighboring star systems instead of continuing the endless wars that had defined her civilization for generations. Such radical thinking couldn't be tolerated, they said. The princess must be removed, but royal blood was still royal blood. They couldn't execute her outright. Exile was the solution. Era surveyed her meager supplies: a small container of water, some basic rations, a multipurpose tool, and a thin blanket for the freezing desert nights. No communication devices, no weapons, nothing that might actually ensure long-term survival. The message was clear. This wasn't meant to be a punishment. She would survive. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the heat on her skin. At least her species had evolved with natural resistance to extreme temperatures. It was one small advantage on a planet selected specifically for its inhospitable conditions. The desert world had been charted but never colonized, deemed too harsh even for her hardy people. Era opened her eyes and looked down at her hands. The distinctive purple markings along her wrists identified her royal lineage, a bloodline that stretched back thousands of years. Now she would be the first of her line to die alone on a forgotten world. "No," she said firmly, "I refuse to give them what they want." With renewed determination, Era secured her water container to her belt and checked the position of the suns. According to the brief information she'd been given before being forced onto the transport ship, the desert temperatures would drop dramatically after sunset. She needed to find shelter before night fell. She began walking toward a ridge in the distance, her feet sinking slightly into the fine sand with each step. The landscape was mostly flat, broken occasionally by rock formations and small dunes. Nothing lived here except for sparse, tough vegetation that somehow managed to survive despite the harsh conditions. As she walked, Era considered her situation more carefully. The council had been suspiciously quick to exile her after her peace proposal, almost as if they had been waiting for an excuse. Her father, the king, had been mysteriously ill for months, leaving the council to rule in his stead. Now she wondered if his illness had been entirely natural. After several hours of walking, Era's water supply was already half gone. The heat was intense even for her biology, and her throat felt parched despite careful rationing. She paused at the top of a small rise, wiping sweat from her brow as she surveyed the horizon. That's when she saw them. Structures in the distance that didn't match the natural rock formation she'd been passing. They were too regular, too symmetrical. In the shimmer of heat rising from the desert floor, they almost appeared to be buildings. "Impossible," she muttered. This planet was supposed to be uninhabited. The council had chosen it specifically because no one would find her here. Yet as the twin suns began their slow descent toward the horizon, the distant shapes became clearer. They were definitely structures of some kind. Not natural rock formations, but something built with purpose. Era felt a surge of hope mixed with caution. If there were structures, there might be people, or at least the remnants of some civilization. Either would mean potential resources, shelter, perhaps even a way to somehow get off this planet eventually. She adjusted her pace, moving faster despite her fatigue. Her species could go without water longer than many others, but even she had limits. Finding shelter before nightfall had become even more critical now that she had a specific destination. As the first sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, Era finally got close enough to make out details of the structures. They appeared to be some sort of research station or outpost. Low, Dome-shaped buildings partially buried in the sand, as if designed to withstand the planet's harsh conditions. There were no lights visible, no signs of current activity. The second sun was halfway to the horizon when she reached the perimeter of the facility. Up close, she could see that the structures were weathered but not ancient. Someone had built this place within the last few decades. The main entrance was partially blocked by drifting sand, but not completely sealed. "Hello," Era called out, her voice sounding strange after hours of silence. No response came. She approached the main door cautiously, noticing unfamiliar markings, some kind of writing system she couldn't recognize. Not the language of her people, nor any of the neighboring systems she knew of. This raised troubling questions. Had the Council lied about this planet being uninhabited? Or was this facility built by some species unknown to her civilization? The door wasn't locked. With some effort, Era pushed it open, sending a cascade of fine sand into the darkness beyond. Cool air rushed out to meet her, a blessed relief after hours in the heat. "Is anyone here?" She called again, peering into the shadows. Silence was her only answer, but the facility itself told a story. It had power. Emergency lighting activated automatically as she stepped inside, illuminating a research station that appeared to have been abandoned in a hurry. Equipment was still in place, personal items scattered about. Era moved deeper inside, adjusting her simple garments and feeling a complex mixture of emotions: relief at finding shelter, confusion about who had built this place, and a growing suspicion about her exile. Had she been sent here specifically because of this facility? Or was its discovery just a stroke of luck? As the second sun set and darkness fell completely outside, Era explored the main control room of the facility. On a central console, she found images that made her freeze in place. Displayed on a screen were beings unlike any she had ever seen before, creatures with rounded features, varied skin tones, and no trace of the distinctive markings all people in her star system shared. "Who are you?" She whispered to the images, running her fingers over the alien faces looking back at her from the screen. "And what were you doing here?" The answer came in the form of a soft hum as more systems in the facility activated, responding to her presence. A recorded message began to play, spoken in a language she couldn't understand. Era stood in the center of the alien facility, watching the twin moons rise through a small observation window. "I'm not as alone as they intended," she whispered with newfound determination. Whatever secrets this place held might be her key to survival, and perhaps even a way back to reclaim what was rightfully hers. The small research outpost hummed with the sound of machines. Outside, the desert wind howled against the reinforced walls, but inside was calm and cool. 3 humans worked quietly at their stations, each focused on different tasks. They had been on this remote planet for nearly 6 months now, studying its unusual mineral formations and extreme climate patterns. Dr. Hana looked up from her console suddenly, her eyes widening. "I'm getting strange readings from the eastern quadrant," she said, adjusting the settings on her monitor. The motion sensors picked up something large moving across the dunes. Dr. Jin, the expedition leader, moved to her side quickly. His weathered face showed concern as he studied the readouts. "Animal life. We haven't detected any large creatures in this region before." "No," Hannah replied, shaking her head. "The signature is Bictal. It's walking upright. And look at this heat pattern. It's regulated. This isn't some desert creature." She pointed to the thermal imaging display. "Whatever it is, it's maintaining a steady body temperature despite being out in the killing heat." The youngest researcher, Dr. Tai, joined them at the console. His eyes grew wide behind his glasses. "Impossible. Nothing could survive out there for long, not even in protective gear. Our suits can only handle 30 minutes maximum exposure." "Well, something is definitely coming this way," Hana insisted, "and it's moving with purpose, straight toward us." Jin frowned deeply. "How could anything know we're here? This outpost is shielded and partially buried. Even from orbit, It looks like nothing more than a rock formation. Maybe it detected our water source. Ta suggested. We did drill that new well last week. The three researchers fell silent, watching the blip on their screens move steadily closer. It was still several kilometers away, but moving at a consistent pace. I'm activating security protocols, Jin said finally, pressing his hand against the scanner. Red lights began to flash as protective shields slid into place over the already reinforced windows. Hana, continue monitoring. Tay, prepare the emergency evacuation pods, just in case. In case of what? Tai asked nervously. We don't even know what it is. Exactly, Jin replied. And I'd rather be prepared for anything. They watched the screens tensely as the unknown visitor approached. Hours passed, and the mysterious figure continued its steady progress across the desert. Night fell, and the temperature plummeted as it always did on this extreme world, but the beam kept moving. It should have stopped to shelter from the cold, Hana observed. Whatever it is, it can withstand both extreme heat and cold. By morning, the sensors indicated the visitor was less than half a kilometer away. Jin made a difficult decision. I'm going out to make visual contact, he announced, reaching for his protective suit. That's against protocol, Hana protested immediately. We don't know if it's hostile. If it wanted to attack, it could have approached during the night when visibility was poor, Jin reasoned. Instead, it's coming in broad daylight. That suggests peaceful intentions. He paused, then added, Besides, I'll stay within range of the defensive systems. Minutes later, Jin stood outside the main entrance, thermal rifle at his side but not raised. The morning suns beat down mercilessly, and even through his protective suit, he could feel the heat building. In the distance, a figure appeared, walking slowly but steadily across the dunes. Through his helmet's enhanced vision, Jin finally got a clear look at their visitor. He gasped in surprise. It appeared to be a humanoid female with distinctive purple markings on her visible skin. She wore simple clothes that should have offered little protection against the elements, yet she moved with determination rather than the desperate stumbling of someone near death. Jin, what do you see? Hana's voice came through his helmet comm. She's not like any species in our database, he replied, not taking his eyes off the approaching figure. Humanoid, bipedal, but definitely not human. Purple skin markings, unusual facial structure. As the stranger drew closer, Jin could see she was struggling despite her remarkable resilience. Her movements had become less steady, and she squinted against the harsh light of the twin suns. Making a quick decision, Jin stepped forward, lowering his weapon completely. He held up one hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. The purple-marked woman stopped about 10 meters away, studying him with equal curiosity and caution. Then, to Jin's surprise, she spoke. Help, she said clearly, in perfect galactic standard. Water. Inside the outpost, Hana and Todd watched on the monitors as Jin carefully escorted the alien visitor inside. Emergency containment protocols activated automatically, creating a separate airlock where they could safely interact. I'm Dr. Jin, he said once they were inside the cooler airlock chamber. These are my colleagues, Dr. Hana and Dr. Ta. We're researchers from Earth. The woman accepted the water container he offered, drinking slowly and carefully. When she finished, she straightened her posture in a way that seemed almost formal. I am Princess Era, she said, her voice stronger now. Royal heir to the celestial throne of Lysaria. The three humans exchanged glances of shock. Not only had they encountered a previously unknown intelligent species, but apparently royalty. How did you come to be alone in the desert? Hana asked, studying the alien woman with professional interest, while Ta discreetly scanned her with medical equipment. Era's expression darkened. I was exiled. My royal council determined my ideas were too dangerous for our society. They left me here to die. Ta couldn't contain his horror. They abandoned you on this planet. As punishment? with nothing. Your council just left you here to die. Hannah echoed, equally shocked. That's... She searched for a word. Barbaric. Era seemed surprised by their reaction. My people believe isolation purifies the spirit, she explained carefully. Exile is considered merciful compared to other punishments. Jin noticed how she spoke the words as if reciting something learned long ago, not something she personally believed. What ideas were considered so dangerous? He asked gently. Era hesitated, studying each of their faces before answering. I proposed peace with neighboring systems. Our worlds have been at war for generations. I suggested trade instead of conquest. Her voice grew bitter. For this, I was deemed unfit to rule. The humans were silent, processing this information. Finally, Jin spoke. Princess Era, we can offer you sanctuary here while we figure out what to do next. Our outpost is small, but we have enough supplies. I accept your offer, Era said formally, then added with surprising vulnerability. I don't think I would have survived another day out there. As Ta showed her to the small medical bay for examination, Hannah pulled Jin aside. Do you realize what this means? She whispered urgently. First contact with an advanced civilization, and not just any member, royalty. Jin nodded soberly. Yes, and apparently a civilization with some troubling practices. We need to report this to Earth Command immediately. The transmission will take 3 days to reach the nearest relay station, Hannah reminded him. Then we have 3 days to learn as much as we can, Jin replied, watching as Tai carefully examined the alien princess, and to figure out just how much trouble we're all in if her people come looking for her. 7 days had passed since Princess Era arrived at the human research outpost. The days had fallen into a comfortable routine. Each morning, Dr. Jin checked the atmospheric sensors, while Dr. Hannah continued her research on the planet's unusual mineral formations. Dr. Ta spent hours talking with Era, learning about her civilization while teaching her about Earth. Era had begun to feel safe for the first time since her exile. The humans didn't treat her like royalty, which she found refreshing. They valued her knowledge and opinions simply because they were hers, not because of her royal blood. She had started helping with small tasks around the outpost, eager to contribute. This morning began like any other. Era was helping Ta classify soil samples when Jin burst into the lab, his normally calm face tight with worry. Ships, he said without preamble. 3 vessels just entered orbit. Hannah looked up from her workstation. Research vessels. We weren't expecting any supply drops for another month. Jin shook his head. Unknown configuration. They're not responding to standard hails. He turned to Era. I don't suppose your people use communication protocols compatible with ours. The color drained from Era's face as she stood up slowly. What do they look like? The ships. Jin pulled up the grainy images on his tablet. The vessels were sleek, with distinctive purple markings along their hulls. The enforcers, Era whispered, her voice barely audible. Her hands began to tremble. They've come to ensure my exile is permanent. You mean they want to kill you? Hannah said bluntly, always the most direct of the 3 researchers. Era nodded slowly. Yes. And you as well. My people don't leave witnesses. She looked at each of the humans with genuine sorrow. I've brought this danger to you. I'm sorry. Ta stepped forward. How much time do we have? They'll scan the planet first, Era explained. Looking for life signs that match my species. That will take perhaps 2 hours. Then they'll send down hunter squads. Jin's response was immediate and decisive. Then we have 2 hours to disappear. He moved to a control panel and pressed his palm against it. A series of lights turned red as alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Emergency evacuation protocol. We're leaving in 15 minutes. What followed was a flurry of activity that left Era standing in stunned silence. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, each knowing exactly what to do. Hannah downloaded critical research data while simultaneously destroying the originals. Todd packed medical supplies and food rations into tight bundles. Jin disabled the facility's main power core, setting it to erase all systems once they left. Grab only what you absolutely need, Jin instructed Ara, handing her a backpack. One change of clothes, any personal items. We'll provide everything else. Ara had little to pack, just the few items the humans had given her since her arrival. As she stuffed them into the backpack, she watched the humans with growing amazement. Their bodies were physically weaker than her species in many ways, less resistant to temperature extremes, less naturally strong. Yet they moved with a coordinated purpose that impressed her deeply. "Where will we go?" she asked as Ty hurried past with arms full of equipment. "We have a secondary base," he explained, loading his supplies into a large six-wheeled vehicle Ara had never seen before. It had been hidden in a storage bay beneath the main facility. "We built it in the canyon system about 40 kilometers from here. Standard protocol for all Earth research outposts. Always have a backup." "Your people planned for failure?" Ara asked, confused. In her civilization, planning for failure was seen as inviting it. "We plan for survival," Ta corrected with a quick smile. "Human ingenuity tends to shine in desperate situations. It's kind of our thing." Within 12 minutes, 3 minutes ahead of schedule, the rover was packed. Jin performed one final sweep of the facility, while Hana helped Ara into the vehicle. "The rovers are shielded," Hana explained, securing Ara into a padded seat. "They won't be able to detect our life signs while we're inside. And the canyon system has natural mineral deposits that interfere with most scanning technologies." Jin returned and took the driver's position. "Everyone ready? Once we leave, there's no coming back." When everyone nodded, he pressed his hand to a final scanner. Initiating facility shutdown. The lights throughout the outpost began to fade as power systems went offline. Massive doors opened in the vehicle bay, revealing the harsh desert landscape outside. Jin guided the rover out onto the sand and immediately accelerated to full speed. "The shutdown sequence includes releasing coolant gases," he explained as they raced away from the facility. "It will lower the temperature signature of the base, making it appear abandoned for longer. With luck, they'll think you've already died in the desert." Ara watched through the rear viewport as the place that had briefly been her home disappeared into the distance. "They won't be fooled for long. Enforcers are very thorough." "They don't know humans," Hannah said with unexpected confidence. "And they don't know what we can do when cornered." The rover sped across the desert, its specialized tires designed to minimize tracks in the sand. Jin kept them moving at a rapid pace, occasionally changing direction to break any potential trail. The twin suns beat down mercilessly, but inside the rover remained cool and comfortable. "Your technology is impressive," Ara noted as they drove. "My people would be surprised. They believe humans are primitive because your civilization is so young." Todd laughed. "Being underestimated has its advantages." After 2 hours of hard driving, they reached the edge of a massive canyon system. Jin slowed the rover and guided it carefully down a nearly invisible path that wound between towering rock formations. "The entrance to the backup facility is hidden," he explained. "Even if they track us this far, they'll have trouble finding the actual base." As they descended deeper into the canyon, the air grew cooler. Massive rock walls provided shade from the suns, and Ara noticed small patches of green plants growing in protected crevices. Life finding a way in even the harshest conditions, much like these humans. "Almost there," Jin announced as they rounded a final bend. Before them stood what appeared to be a solid rock wall. Hana leaned forward and pressed her hand against a small scanner hidden in the rover's dashboard. With a rumble, a section of the rock wall slid aside, revealing the tunnel beyond. "Welcome to our Plan B," she said to Ara as Jin drove them inside. The tunnel sealed behind them as lights activated automatically. They continued forward until they reached a large cavern that had been converted into a functional base, smaller than the main facility but well equipped. "We'll be safe here for now," Jin said as he powered down the rover. But we need to make plans quickly. Those ships won't give up easily. As they unloaded their supplies, Era watched the humans work. Their coordination under pressure was remarkable. 3 individuals moving as one efficient unit, where her people relied on superior physical abilities and advanced technology. These humans relied on adaptation and teamwork. "Thank you," she said quietly when they had finished setting up the base. "You risked everything to help me." "Why?" The 3 researchers exchanged glances before Jin answered. Era took a deep breath. "The royal bloodline carries genetic markers that can activate ancient technology," she revealed. "Technology my council fears because it could unite rather than divide our systems." Jin frowned. "What kind of technology?" "Our ancestors created devices that respond only to royal DNA," Era explained. "Devices designed to connect worlds, not conquer them. The Council has spent generations hunting down and destroying these artifacts, but they could never destroy the knowledge completely." "And you know how to build one of these devices?" Hannah asked skeptically. Era shook her head. "Not build, but activate. And I think I already found one." She turned to Ta. "The strange metal object you found in the Eastern Canyon last week, the one you couldn't identify." I recognized some of the markings but said nothing. I needed time to be sure I could trust you completely. Tae's eyes widened. "That thing is alien technology. I thought it was just an unusual mineral formation." "It's called a resonator," Era explained. "It was designed to harmonize with planetary energies for communication purposes, but it could also be modified to amplify the natural properties of minerals." Jin looked skeptical. "And this will hide us from the enforcers. If we can activate it and calibrate it correctly, it should create enough interference to mask our presence," Era confirmed. "But there's a risk. Once activated, the energy signature might initially attract attention before it creates the interference field." "So it's a gamble," Hannah summarized. "Either it hides us completely, or it leads them straight to us." Ta was already gathering equipment. "We don't have many options. The enforcers will find us eventually with or without the resonator." "I agree," Jin said after a moment of consideration. "We proceed with Era's plan." "Tai, how quickly can you modify the device?" "With Era's guidance, a few hours." "Then we better get started." The next few hours passed in a flurry of activity. Era and Ta worked to modify the ancient device, while Jin and Hannah prepared defensive measures in case the plan failed. The small group worked with seamless coordination, each person contributing their unique skills. As they worked, Era found herself marveling at how quickly the humans had accepted her revelation about royal technology. There was no jealousy, no attempt to steal the knowledge for themselves, only a practical focus on solving their immediate problem. "Why aren't you more interested in this technology for yourselves?" she finally asked Tai as they made the final adjustments to the resonator. "It's far more advanced than anything your people have developed." Ta glanced up from his work. "Oh, we're definitely interested," he admitted with a small smile. "But survival comes first, scientific curiosity second." "Besides," Hannah added from across the room, "we believe knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. If we all survive this, perhaps our peoples could learn from each other." The concept was so contrary to everything Era had been taught about interspecies relations that she fell silent, contemplating the possibilities. By nightfall, the modified resonator was ready. They placed it in the center of the base, connecting it to their power systems for the initial activation. "This is the moment of truth," Jin said, looking at each of them in turn. "Everyone clear on the backup plan if this fails?" They all nodded. The emergency escape route had been prepared, the secondary hiding location established. Era stepped forward, rolling up her sleeve to reveal the distinctive purple markings that ran along her forearm. "These aren't just decorative," she explained. "The patterns contain genetic identifiers unique to the royal lineage." She placed her arm against the ancient device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, patterns matching her skin markings began to glow on the surface of the resonator. A low hum filled the room as the device activated, responding to her royal blood. "It's working," Ta whispered, checking his instruments. "The mineral deposits throughout the canyon are beginning to resonate at matching frequencies." The humming grew louder. The lights in the base flickered as the device drew more power. Era kept her arm firmly pressed against the surface, reciting activation phrases in her native language that had been passed down through generations of her family. "Energy spike," Hannah called out, watching the monitors. "The Enforcer's ships are changing course." They detected the initial activation. "Hold steady," Jin urged, his hand on his weapon. "Give it time to work." The tense seconds stretched into minutes as they watched the approaching ships on their sensors. The resonator's hum had settled into a steady pulse that seemed to vibrate through the very rock around them. 2 kilometers in closing, Hannah reported, her voice tight. 1 kilometer, 500 meters. Era closed her eyes, focusing all her energy on the ancient device, willing it to work faster. "They're directly overhead," Jin whispered. The base fell completely silent except for the pulsing of the resonator. They could hear the faint sound of engines above them. Then, suddenly, the sound began to fade. "They're moving away," Hannah said in disbelief, watching the monitors. They're leaving the canyon entirely." Tay rushed to check his instruments. "The interference field is working. Their sensors can't penetrate it. To them, this entire section of the canyon just looks like a massive mineral deposit." Era finally removed her arm from the device, exhausted but triumphant. The resonator continued to function on its own now, creating a protective bubble around their hiding place. "We did it," she said softly, looking at each of her human allies with newfound respect. "Together." Jin nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "Yes, together. I think we just formed an alliance that neither of our peoples could have imagined." That night, as the others slept, Era stood at the small observation window, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, the Enforcers continued their search, unaware that their target had found not just shelter, but allies who valued cooperation over conquest. For the first time since her exile, she felt not just hope for survival, but hope for something more, a new future for both their worlds. The hidden canyon base hummed with activity. 3 months had passed since the resonator had successfully hidden them from the Enforcers. The alien ships still patrolled the planet occasionally, but their searches had become less frequent. The small group had used this time wisely. Tai had been working day and night on a special project. His workspace was cluttered with parts salvaged from their equipment and components Era had helped him design based on her knowledge of her people's technology. "It's ready for testing," Tai announced one morning, holding up a device that looked like a hybrid of human and alien technology. The others gathered around curiously. "What exactly is it?" Hannah asked, studying the strange contraption. "A signal amplifier," Tai explained proudly. "Strong enough to punch a message through the interference field and reach not just neighboring star systems, but all the way to Earth." Jin looked impressed but concerned. "The moment we send any signal, we reveal our location." "I know," Tai admitted, "but Ara and I have been talking." He glanced at the alien princess. "We think it's time to stop hiding and start fighting back." All eyes turned to Era. Over the past months, she had changed. Gone was the shocked, abandoned royal. In her place stood a determined leader with a clear vision. "My people deserve to know the truth," Era said firmly. "For generations, the Council has manipulated information, started wars, and eliminated anyone who threatened their power, including my father." The humans exchanged surprised glances. This was new information. "Your father?" Hannah asked gently. Era nodded, her purple markings seeming to darken with her mood. "I've had time to piece it together. His sudden illness began after he started questioning the Council's war policies. My exile wasn't just about silencing me. It was about eliminating the royal bloodline entirely." "But you survived," Jin pointed out. "Yes, thanks to you." Era took a deep breath. And now I want to use the resonator technology and Tuz amplifier to broadcast the truth, not just to my people, but to all neighboring systems and Earth as well." "What truth, exactly?" Hannah asked. "That the Council has been destroying ancient technology that could unite our worlds, that they've been starting wars to maintain their power, and that I, the rightful heir, am still alive." Era's voice grew stronger with each word. "But I need something more than just my claims. I need proof." "Your royal genetic code," Ta said, "combined with the resonator technology, it creates a unique signature that can't be faked. When your people receive a message with that signature, they'll know it's genuinely from you." Jin considered this carefully. "It's risky. We'd be painting a target on ourselves." "We've been hiding long enough," Era replied. "It's time to reclaim what was taken from me, not just my position, but my people's future." After hours of debate, they reached a decision. They would broadcast their message, but they would also prepare for the worst. Emergency escape routes were planned. Defenses were set up, and most importantly, the message itself was crafted with extraordinary care. The day of the broadcast arrived. The small group gathered around the modified resonator, now connected to Ta's amplifier. Era stood before it, her royal markings fully exposed. "Ready?" Jin asked, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Era nodded, her expression solemn but determined. "My people, hear me," she began as Jin activated the device. Her voice, combined with the unique genetic signature transmitted by the resonator, would reach across space to every system that had ever communicated with her world. She spoke of the Council's corruption, of the wars they had manufactured, of the ancient technologies they had destroyed. She spoke of her exile and of the humans who had saved her. Most importantly, she spoke of a different future, one built on cooperation instead of conquest. When she finished, the room fell silent. The message had been sent. Now they could only wait. "Signal confirmed," Jin announced after checking the instruments. The broadcast reached its targets. "So what happens now?" Hannah asked the question they were all thinking. "Now," Era said quietly, "we prepare for either a fight or a revolution." They didn't have to wait long. Within hours, their sensors detected ships entering orbit. But these weren't enforcer vessels. Their configurations were diverse, some from Era's homeworld, others from neighboring systems that had long been at war with each other. "They're hailing us," Jin said with surprise. "All of them." The first response came from a general who had secretly opposed the Council for years. "Princess Era," he said, his image flickering on their communication screen. "Your message has created chaos in the capital. Half the Council has been arrested by their own guards. The people are demanding your return." More messages followed. Leaders from systems that had been at war for generations were suddenly requesting peace talks, with Era as mediator. Scientists offered help in recovering and restoring the ancient technologies. And most surprisingly, an official transmission from Earth Command arrived, offering diplomatic relations with both Era's people and the coalition of systems forming around her. "This is happening too fast," Hannah said, amazed at the rapid developments. "Revolutions often do," Jin replied. "Once people see a path to something better, they move quickly." Within days, the first ships landed near the original research outpost. Not enforcers coming to kill them, but allies coming to rebuild. Representatives from multiple worlds, including Earth, arrived to meet the princess who had dared to challenge generations of conflict. Standing at the outpost where she had first met the humans, Era watched transport ships land with supplies for a new beginning. Engineers and scientists from a dozen worlds worked side by side, already beginning the process of establishing a permanent colony. "My people named this planet Wasteland," she said to her human friends as they stood together watching the activity. "But with your terraforming technology and my people's resources, we'll rename it Haven, the first truly collaborative colony in our shared history." Jin nodded approvingly. "A fitting name." "And a fitting place," Tai added. "A world that seemed hostile, but held hidden potential all along. Hannah smiled. Just like certain stubborn species who discover they can accomplish more together than apart. Era looked out at the desert stretching to the horizon. Already, the first experimental terraforming stations were being set up, designed to gradually transform the harsh environment into something more hospitable. It would take years, perhaps generations, to complete, but the process had begun. "The desert will bloom," she said softly, "much like the alliance between our civilizations." As if in response to her words, a group of scientists nearby activated a small terraforming node. A fine mist spread across a patch of sand. Within minutes, tiny green shoots began to appear, specially engineered plants designed to thrive in this harsh world, to transform it one small area at a time. "It's appropriate that we start here," Era continued. "On the world where I was meant to die, we instead birthed something new." The four friends stood together watching as ships continued to arrive, bringing more people and resources. The council had intended Era's exile to be the end of her story. Instead, it had become just the beginning. Not just for her, but for multiple worlds who had glimpsed a different path forward. "What happens next?" Ty asked. Era smiled, looking at the humans who had saved her life and helped change the destiny of countless worlds. "We build. We learn. We grow." She reached out, placing her hand with its distinctive royal markings next to their human hands. Different, yet working together. And we remember that sometimes the most powerful alliance begins with the most unlikely friends. Above them, the twin suns shone down on a planet being transformed. Below, the first seeds of a new civilization took root in the desert sand. And between worlds that had once been enemies, communication channels remained open, filled with possibilities instead of threats. The wasteland was becoming haven, one day at a time.